Hi everyone, some gamer dude here. So recently the rules for Gate Ruler went up on the Japanese website. Over on Gate Realize, they have translated the rules, or specifically Orenji Raiji did, and we have an English translated demo deck to print out. I've already printed out the demo. I'm hoping to play it in the next week or two as soon as I get the chance. I've been really busy, but I want to hopefully get a review, at least of the demo deck, out by Christmas Day at the latest. As soon as I actually get to play it and get to terms with my feelings, I'll be right on that review. So I will also note right here, there is a bit of awkward wording in this rulebook. I don't blame anyone for that. It probably didn't get cleaned up after a raw translation. It could have used localization in addition to translation, but it doesn't matter. The message is fairly clear, and I think we can understand most everything. I also will note, I think the rulebook could be a little better. I don't think everything is quite clear until you read through everything. As I've been writing my own rulebook recently, I think I've basically got it done now. I'm a little bit more sensitive to these types of things at the moment. So 1. Card types. There are a total of 5 card types in Gate Ruler. 2 of them are not put into the deck, Ruler and Energy, and 3 of them form the deck, Unit, Event and Field. Card types 2. Cards that are not put into the deck. Ruler, a representation of the player, of yourself. A game cannot be played without a ruler, and it can be attacked. Different rulers have different play rules and deck building rules. See each ruler's page for details. This is the QR code. The QR code is nowhere near as bad as it could have been. I'd argue it's not bad at all. I'm not sure the QR code was even necessary. I think they could have just made it some type of index on the website where you just click on the set, click on the character's name, and then have a drop down of the rules. What is actually in the QR code seems to just be deck building rules. It is not something you have to continuously reference. As soon as you actually build your deck, it's done. You might only have to reference it if you change your deck up. But you could probably just, since it doesn't go in the deck and it's not going to affect anything, if any of the rules are things you have to remember and have to continuously reference because you might be altering your deck a lot, just put a little sheet of paper with the effects in your deck box. It's not a big deal. It's really not a big deal. Energy. Used for paying the cost of cards you play. Some rulers don't use energy. See game preparation for each ruler. This is again the QR code. Now, interesting with the energy, we haven't seen rulers that only have 1 or 2 energy, and maybe stats to counterbalance that. Really high stats with low energy. I'm iffy and ummy on the energy. I don't think it's elegant the way it's done, mostly because you start off with all of it, and it's just, yeah. But I think any other way they could have done it, things I've tested in the past, are frankly impractical. What they've done is pure practicality, and it works. Again, I think it's a little bit inelegant, but I would rather the game be practical than spectacle. Spectacle is important. Don't get me wrong. If a game without spectacle is incredibly boring, but this isn't the game itself. It's a component of the game. It's its functionality, I should say. So I'm okay with this. I'm perfectly happy. Card types 3. Cards that form your deck. Units. Your companions that help you fight other rulers. They can be monsters, humans, vehicles, robots, and much more. They can attack the ruler and defend you from enemies' attacks. They can also attack enemy units. This is what I mean about this manual feels a little bit first drafty. That should really be there. I don't know if it's in the Japanese version. I can't read Japanese. But if anyone from Gate Ruler is saying this for whatever reason, I would alter that to read they can attack rulers and units, opponents' units. That's not clear, and it's not clear till later in the manual. There's a few other things regarding attacking that are not clear, that you can only really decipher out through reading between the lines. The manual feels like it needed a little bit of proofreading. So, next we have events. Can have different effects, such as powering up your units and preventing enemy attacks. So basic spell stuff. Send event to the cemetery after using its effect. Cemetery will be changed to graveyard in the English version. English versions usually use American English as the base. American English uses graveyard rather than cemetery. I think we use cemetery in Australia. I think it sounds a bit more posh. I would use cemetery, but that's just me. And it's not going to happen. Field. This is the card type that we're a bit confused about, but Occam's razor seemed to come into play. The most obvious solution was the correct one. Cards that can be placed into the field zone and always in effect. There's no limit to how many cards can be placed into the field zone. So this is a card type I'm not sure if we've seen yet. And I will say this, I'm not sold on the horizontal the landscape layout of the events and fields. I get why it's done to differentiate them from the units, but reading them will be a pain in the bum. Not a fan of that. It's something I wouldn't do myself. Just not a fan. It's not going to affect anything once you memorize your cards. Let's not be overly critical here, but it is a little bit annoying if you're sitting there reading your hand, especially if you're learning, and you flat out move a card around to a different position and your opponent starts figuring out what you have, or at least what card types you're holding. So, yeah. Win conditions, your basic standard win conditions. You win when either of these two conditions are met. 1, enemy ruler's life is equal to the number of cards in their damage zone, so Vanguard type stuff. 2, there are no cards left in your opponent's deck. Literally Vanguard. Literally the Naruto TCG as well, I believe. But who remembers that at this point? I think it's still played a bit, but it's not really highly remembered. I think like Hito-kun is about the only YouTuber I can think of that even talks about it. That is a very interesting series. I wish he'd do more of that. You should sub to him if you haven't. I think he's a YouTuber worth following. Very interesting Naruto series. So, game preparation. Follow the steps below. Shuffle your cards and put them face down. Where? They mean the deck zone, but it's like it doesn't specify. Follow your ruler's game preparation. This would be your energy, etc., etc. And should note, this game is actually very weird. A lot of rulers don't have a hand. Yeah. They flat out don't. You don't start with a hand. You start drawing cards, and that's what you use. And if one of them, which we'll see at the end of this video, is straight up use it or lose it. It's interesting. And that's why I'm showing more interest in this game than Digimon, to be quite honest. I also don't like the drop rates for Digimon, but this game is far more interesting. And of course, randomly decide who goes first. Turn flow. Players take turns for their actions. The turns are as follows. That's really awkward wording because each phase would not be a turn, but let's start phase. Activate all of your rest units and your ruler. Follow your ruler's start of turn, which would be activating all of your energy. Some might only activate some energy, which will be an interesting thing. I think there's a lot of really cool things that they can use to create a lot of diversity with rulers. I think that's got a ton of stuff to play with, and I really love it. I think that's neat. Main phase. During this phase, you play your units, events, as well as effect with normal timing. See main phase details for more specific information. Attack phase. During this phase, you use your units and your ruler to attack your opponents. You can also attack their units, by the way. This is another part where it should be more elaborate. It should elaborate on things. Just saying, the manual feels a little bit drafty to me. Again, because I've been doing my own manual recently, I might be a little bit more sensitive to these types of things. During the first turn of the game, you can only attack once. See attack phase details for more specific information. End phase, remove all damage from all units on the field, including your opponent's ones. So that's more specific. That's more elaboration on what you mean. That's good. Until end of turn effects are over at this moment. All above turns are alternatively repeated between both players until a winner is decided. Again, all above turns, that doesn't make sense. But we know what you mean. Main phase details. You can perform any of the following actions in any order you want, any number of times. Play units and events. You can summon units and play events during this phase. Units can be summoned to attack zones and defense zones. Now, it's interesting they say defense zones. I think we might see rulers with multiple meat shields and maybe no ability to summon units to attack with. That would be interesting. Again, I really love the amount of tools the game designer has to play with in this game. This is a game designer side of things dream. To be perfectly honest, the game designer in me is more interested in the game design rather than playing it at this point. Of course I want to play it, but I just think the amount of different things you can do with the ruler packed onto one card from a design space is really interesting. I really like it. I think it's going to make the game have a lot of longevity too, because it doesn't feel like they're going to run out of things they can do. They can make little tweaks and it'll probably feel significantly different. So I really appreciate that from a game designer point of view. 2. Set cards. Put cards face down. Keep your events hidden in set zones. Cards use set timing immediate can be played from face down at any time during your turn or your opponent's turn. So unlike Yu-Gi-Oh, where you have to wait a turn if they trigger the effect or you want to use the effect, for say a quick play spell or a trap, it can be used immediately. I like that. I think that's far better, to be honest. Use normal effects. Effects with normal timing can only be used during your main phase. Just back to set cards, I think it's interesting they don't mention ever paying for them. I'd have to look through the set cards again to see if any of them actually do have costs attached. But it'll be interesting if when you flip it you have to pay the cost, or if none of them have costs. So there's that. Use normal effects. Effects with normal timing can only be played during your main phase. Fair enough. Move your units. You can move units on your field to another zone. You can also swap positions of your units. Basic stuff. I think that's basic Vanguard stuff, and I think Buddy Fight does it as well. Attack phase details. This one's also got a little bit that's incoherent in my opinion, but this is where we specify that units can attack units. During this phase, you can attack enemy units and your opponent's ruler. To attack, put your ruler or your unit in the attacking zone to rest and specify the line you are attacking. Ruler is considered to be a center line. If there are any units in a line you are attacking, you attack those units. So it doesn't specify if, like the old One Piece game, where there's specific lines you can attack and can't attack from certain positions. I don't think that's the case, but why? I don't get why they're specifying that if there's any units in a line, you have to attack them, because if there's no units there, why would you attack it? Just saying. Seems a bit weird. Maybe that came up in playtesting, I don't know. Attacking a unit. When you attack a unit, it receives combat damage equal to the attacker's attack. If a unit receives more damage than its HP, it's destroyed. If it's not destroyed, the damage is accumulated until end of turn. Even units with high HP can be destroyed with multiple attacks. The attacking unit doesn't receive any combat damage, so when you attack into something, it doesn't attack back. I'm not sure if that's how it worked in Buddy Fight. I really don't remember. I haven't played much of Buddy Fight because each time I did, I didn't enjoy it. So, attacking a ruler. When you attack a ruler, it receives damage equal to the attacker's strike. To apply damage, so everything has that's the critical value. So, to apply damage, that ruler flips one card from the top of their deck and puts it into their damage zone. So, they mean each point of damage you flip the top card. It's not when you receive, say, 3 damage, you only flip the top one. It's damage equal to the strike. And then for each one you flip. If that card has a CNT counter icon, instead activate its counter effect and put it into the cemetery afterwards. Perform the sequence for each point of damage received. So it says right there. Now, it's really interesting that counter is, by the way, trigger effects, but it is really interesting that all of them are heal triggers. Didn't expect that. Did not expect that in the slightest. I'm sure that'll give the game a pretty decent pacing too. I think it specifies, like Vanguard, you can only have a certain amount of counters in your deck, and I think the base is 16 like Vanguard, but I'm just really interested that it's straight up, if you receive damage as a counter, it's a heal spell, it's a heal effect. No specification on you have to have more damage, no specific counters that only heal damage, just straight up, you don't take the damage, it's essentially a heal. That's pretty cool. Again, I'm really curious on the pacing. I'm really curious now if Vanguard probably should have dropped heal triggers as it went on and went for something like this. Again, I'm just really curious on the pacing. I wonder how fast or slow the game is. I'm going to have to actually pay attention to this, because you'd expect it to go much slower with all damage triggers being heal triggers. I think it's nifty, and I'd love to try it. Can't wait to try it, I should say. Details on how to use events. Events are single-use cards that put into the cemetery after resolving their effects. Each event has a timing written on them that indicates when it can be used. Normal can only be used during the main phase of your turn. Immediate can also be can be played during your main phase like a normal, but also, if it is set, can be played at any moment in the game, including the attack phase and your opponent's turn. And that would be why you'd set them during your turn, because if you need them during your attack phase, you otherwise wouldn't be able to use them. And this basically does imply you have to pay the cost when you use them. It doesn't specify that you don't, so I'd assume you do, even if you set them. So that's a pretty big difference from Force of Will's old Chance Standby. But Chance Standby was a silly concept anyway. In a game that had instant speed spells, this doesn't have basic instant speed spells. So, details on immediate timing. Gate system, which is probably what they're calling the chase. For example, this do or die defensive battle, which we can't read, can increase HP by 3. Imagine your unit being attacked, and after the battle it would be destroyed. To prevent such situations, use this card at the moment of the battle and boost your card's HP. Also, immediate can not only be used during battle, but in response to your opponent's events and effects too. For example, if your opponent's HP is 1, and it's going to be destroyed because of Absolute Explosion, Space Mimic, you can use Do or Die Defense Battle, which will be resolved first, increasing your unit's HP by 3. As a result, your unit will not be destroyed. Order of activation. Effect chooses target to deal 1 damage to. Immediate card is used to increase HP by 3. Order of resolution. Immediate card resolves to increase the HP by 3. Immediate effect is resolved. Event effects is resolved to deal 1 damage to its target. Events effect is applied. So basic chain, chase, etc., etc. Stack. So the process of accumulating immediate effects against each other is called the gate system. Imagine it as the gates cards are piled up. Another example of the gate system situation. You use a do or die defense battle to protect your unit with 1 HP from being destroyed during the attack. In response to your card, your opponent uses Absolute Explosion, Space Mimic. God, that's such a Japanese name. In this scenario, the damage from Absolute Explosion, Space Mimic, will be applied first, and your unit will be destroyed. As your do or die defense battle cannot be resolved anymore, it is simply put into your cemetery. Order of activation. Effect chooses a card to give 3 HP to. Immediate card is used to deal 1 damage. Order of resolution. Immediate card resolves to deal 1 damage. Immediate effect is applied, Unit has 0 HP, so it's destroyed. Event can no longer be resolved. As you can see, using events at different times will result in different outcomes. So again, basically the stack and the chain and the chase, etc., etc. Details on set cards. By setting a card, you can use it on your opponent's turn. Placing the cards face down into a set zone is called to set, and a face down card is called a set card. Only events can be set into the set zone. Units and fields cannot be set. You cannot play your card's immediate effect if it is not set. You can check your face down set card at any time. When the game is over, check each other's set cards to make sure you haven't accidentally set a field card. Again, probably shouldn't have given event cards the horizontal orientation. Just saying. Probably should have just left that for fields. And here we go with the rulers, so we can look at that. Now, number of attack zones 2, defense zones 1, set zones 3. So the set zones also have a specification. And I think that might actually be what the 3 triangles at the bottom of the card are. Game preparation, none. 0 cards in hand, 0 energy. Start of turn, perform 2 drives. Take a number of cards equal to the drive and keep them to yourself. Those cards can be played or set. Cards you didn't play will be put into the cemetery at the end of your main phase. And this was what I mean about you start with no cards in hand, you draw 2 each turn, use them or lose them. I believe this is where the overdrive mechanic comes into play. Cards that are played immediately when you drive them, and I don't think you have to play the cost. I'd have to check up on it, but I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Rule: ignore all actions and effects that make you draw cards or put cards into your hand. You can play cards without paying their level cost. You still pay for effects cost. So this is... Sorry, the bird is getting a bit chirpy. So this is what I mean about not all rulers have energy, and you just can play cards willy-nilly, but you can only play 2 cards a turn, so there's that. And I believe this is all that's actually on the card. So the rest, I believe, is in the QR code. I'm not sure. I'd actually have to just a sec. Let's just actually get the demo sheet up for a sec to just check what is on the ruler. Yeah. Drive 2 times rule. Pay Yeah. So, uh, yeah. You cannot have a hand. So they basically summarize this into smaller text. But yeah, that's this. Sorry, this block of text is what's on the ruler. This is what I mean about the stuff that's on the QR code isn't really that big of a deal. Your deck level limit is 40. Total levels of cards in your deck must be 40 or less. Now that's the cost. I think that's very interesting. Another way to have a lot to play with as a designer. Counter limit 16. Total number of cards with counter in your deck must be 16 or less. You can have up to 12 cards of each faction. You can use cards with collector number starting with 2020 or MD, which actually is really interesting because it means that they might be able to build in a form of rotation, which is very interesting. I think that's actually really, really cool. I'd love to see where that goes. If they do literally build rotation into cards by saying, okay, this one can't use cards beyond a certain point. They might go back and revise cards. Say, okay, we still want it in format, but it's becoming a problem because of specified new card, or we feel locked out of new cards because of this. So, okay, it can't use cards past specific date. So, essentially, it's got rotated in some ways, but it's not rotated in others. So, in other words, it just falls into obsolescence. Its tools are finite. I think that is really, really cool potential. That's not what this is, but the potential there, really cool. And they can make something that would be broken with older cards and just specify, okay, it can only use cards from the year it came out onwards, so it can't interact with those older cards that would break it. I think that is really, really nifty. I think there is a ton of potential with this for having a banned and restricted list in a way that's not obtrusive or annoying or a problem. This actually sparks me far more than even Duel Links ban list. I really love Duel Links ban list, where it's just, okay, you can have up to 3 of the cards on this list, I think it is. 3 or 4 of the cards on this list. I think this is more elegant. So, yeah, I think that's really, really cool. I like it. Deck must be exactly 50 cards. You can only have up to 4 cards with the same name. That will actually play up and be interesting as well. Maybe they'll go for singleton. Maybe they'll go for, okay, you can have up to 8, 16, any amount of cards of the same card you'd like. There's a lot of potential there. As a rule set, I really like it. You can't have any legend cards. That's the one of very strong cards. Some of the rules we know coming up can have multiple legend cards. But legend cards are really big flashy things, boss monsters, but they deliberately kept it one a copy, which I do actually really like, because it means that there's less searching and expense for the consumer. I really love that too. There's a lot to really like about Gate Ruler. So, World Master Beta, similar stuff. Attack Zones 2, Defense Zones 1, Set Zones 3. Game Preparation, put 3 energy cards in active state, draw 2 cards from your deck. Start of turn, draw 2 cards from your deck. If it's the first turn of the game, draw only 1 card. Rules, summon right 2. I'm not sure why it says summon right. Once per turn, you can normal summon a unit by paying cost equal to its level. I don't know why it's right 2. Special summons are not included in this restriction, so Yu-Gi-Oh type stuff. But I don't get why it's right 2. Does that mean you can only have them on the right side, but the mat doesn't look like that. Do they mean summon normal too? I'm actually very confused about that. Deck level limit, none. The total level of cards in your deck can be anything. Counter limit 16, same. You can have up to 12 cards of each faction, same. You may use cards with a collector number starting with 2020 or MD, same. Deck must be 50 cards. Can only have up to 4 cards of the same name, and can have any legend cards. I really am looking forward to this. I can't wait to test it. I think it looks like a lot of fun. And I'm curious what you guys have to say about it. I think it looks great. It's got a lot of familiar stuff. It's clearly building off Vanguard and Yu-Gi-Oh! And well, of course, Buddy Fight, but it feels like it's doing it in a way that feels really fresh and original, and it's interesting. I think that's what sparks me more than anything. It's interesting, and I really can't wait to playtest it. I'm really looking forward to the release next year. I really expected to be doing Digimon, but hey, heart wants what the heart wants, I guess. New hotness looks far more interesting. So, if it means anything, if Akita's watching this, I didn't care for Buddy Fight. Tried it 3 times. Didn't really enjoy it. This looks far more enjoyable. This looks like a much better game, and it suits my tastes much better. I think it's, from a designer aspect, it's bloody interesting, and I love the amount of tools you have to play with. From a gameplay side, I think it takes a lot of things that work and mushes them together, and even takes some things that have been done iffy in the past and does them far better, which is the kind of evolution I like to see. So, yeah, we might be covering a bit more Gate Ruler on the channel. I'm kind of expecting 2021 to be a mishmash of Force of Will, Gate Ruler, and Final Fantasy. I really want to get into more Final Fantasy. I bought some more stuff about a month or 2 ago. I've recorded a bunch of openings. That's for January. February. January is a series for Force of Will. So, that's all I have to really say on the rule set. As I said, I'm looking forward to it. Can't wait to playtest it. As soon as I playtest it and get my feelings straight, I'll be writing up a review on the demo decks. And then when we get the full decks next year, I'll give it a proper review then. This has been Some Gamer Dude, and thanks for watching.